right, I'm assuming we're live. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, whenever day that is that you're listening. Today was Thursday, August 3rd. Thursday the 3rd. And as you can see by the title tonight, we're going to do reviewing the doublets and triplets in the Bible. If anybody's not familiar with that, it'll be pretty interesting. And if you are familiar with it, it could be a good review. I've not gone over this in 2 years. We went over this about 2 years ago in August of 2021, actually. I remember that because it's the year my dog died, so I'll never forget that. So, anyway, that's when we were doing the doublets. So it was 2 years ago. It's time to go over those again because it's very relevant to what we're speaking about right now. That the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, is multiple sources, multiple gods, which explains a lot. And Israel is a land of multiple gods too. Is Isis, Ra is the sun god Ra, and El, Elohim, or El, the El. 3 different gods, and it's so Israel's a combination, the Bible's, the Old Testament's combination, and it's anyway. So the doublets and the triplets is very pertinent to that. It all ties together with the multiple sources, because if you have multiple sources contributing to one book, you're going to have some overlap and you're going to have some inconsistencies. Well, if me and somebody else, or maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe 3 of us tell the story about what we were doing, yeah, there's going to be a few differences, but not major differences. Well, not large amount anyway. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go over that. And then tomorrow is Friday. We always, on the weekends, we have an open chat. Sometimes play Bible Jeopardy. We've played Bible Trivia in the past. I don't know, just Friday is just usually a fun night that we have. It's just an open chat. If anybody wants to come in, I put up a link if anybody wants to come in and chat. So that is always on Friday night. These are live streams, so I do chat and interact with the comment section if there's people in there. So anyway, so that's just how it goes. I've done 2,000, probably 400. I don't know. I've had a lot of live streams taken down, especially this year. Goodness, I just showed the list the other day. I've had a lot of streams taken down. Thank God they did not give me strikes for those, but they've taken down maybe 15 since January, maybe 20. I'm not sure. But anyway, I've done well over 2,000 live streams since 2017 every night, and it just is what it is. If somebody complained that I talked a whole 5 minutes or something, are you kidding? I must have been tired, because usually I talk more than that before I get started. So if there's people in the chat, I will talk to the people in chat. If you can see by the title, it says Deep Dive Bible Study with Kathy and Friends. We're friends here, and I'll see how your day went. You can ask me how mine went, whatever. That's what friends are. So if somebody has a problem with that, it is what it is. And you can always skip forward to the study, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes. And I used to put up the time where the study starts. I could do that again. But you can always just go on the hold your mouse over, and when the picture goes into a study mode, then that's where the study begins. But anyway, yeah, it just is what it is, man. I'm not going to try to change everything for because one person wants me to go faster. It just is what it is. So anyway, we're going to continue what I do. So we always make forward progress here. I've been on every night since 2017. Except for when my dog died, I had to take a week off. But other than that, I've been here every night. Don't get paid. I foot all the expenses myself, thousands of dollars. On StreamYard alone. So anyway, if somebody has a complaint, and I went to their channel, I noticed they've never done a stream or a video or anything. So anyway, there's always going to be somebody complaining. But that's it. That's just how this channel is. Yeah, if somebody's in the chat, I'll say hi and stuff. It's just common courtesy. So anyway, but that's what we're going to do tonight. And then tomorrow, as always, Friday night is just an open chat. We study usually Sunday through Thursday or Monday through Thursday. It depends how the weekends go. Sundays are real slow. And if that's the case, usually we just do the Monday through Thursday study on certain subjects. The next week, we're going to start on Sunday, I think it is. We're going to start God of the Canaanites, which is very interesting because you have Yahweh and Elohim, whatever, which are separate gods. And so we've already gone over all the other gods. Maybe not everyone. We didn't cover the spaghetti monster. But went over the 12 Olympian gods, the Roman counterparts, what else? Egyptian gods. And they're all kind of the same. Every culture's got like a god of war, a god of, I don't know, rain and agriculture, and one of fertility, and sometimes they overlap. One god will do more than one thing. And anyway, but it's kind of across the board, kind of similarities. You know what kind of one of my favorite memories of the gods are? I can't remember which one it was, but it was a female god, and she, when she was angry, she would drink and get drunk, and then just cause all kinds of weather chaos, like storms and tornadoes and earthquakes and all kinds of horrible things. And everybody would just hope that she just keeps drinking until she passes out, because all the weather stuff, the bad stuff, wouldn't stop till she passed out. I think there's like people like that in real life, actually. Anyway, that was probably one of my funniest memories of the gods that we went over. That one was funny. Yeah, just let her burn out like a pack of firecrackers. But anyway, that's the only way everything would stop. So she would just pass on. That's funny. Yeah, there's a couple other kind of funny gods, but I think that one's the funniest. But anyway, we're gonna go over the doublets and the triplets tonight, and kind of talk about something maybe people haven't heard about, the documentary hypothesis, which is a whole nother thing. But anyway, kind of explains it, how this has been broken up into multiple sources. I think 5 sources, the redacted or whatever. So I think there's 5 sources. And what are they coming from? 5 different areas, and Elohim and Yahweh, 2 different gods. Anyway, so it just kind of all ties together, and that's the plan stand for tonight anyway. So that's what we're going to do. yeah, so I'm going to get over to, oh, so we're going to go ahead and start. We got nobody in the chat, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. And by the way, so we're going to be going over these doublets, and there are actually triplets too. There's doublets are when two stories are you have two different stories in the Bible. Well, they're kind of the same story, but they're major differences. Sometimes just a little different, sometimes very different. But then sometimes there's a triplet. Sometimes the three stories that are the same exact story, but maybe they swap out characters or different outcome or whatever. Different details. Anyway, so there's doublets and there's triplets. And we're going to go over that and kind of explain it. And actually, you know, I'm going to put up this link here. This is Bible Brisket. All right, there we go. This is called Bible Brisket. That's weird because last time I pulled this up, there's a totally different picture. Look at that one. Yeah, last time I pulled this up, there was a different picture. It was just like a little bit ago. Anyway, so this is that Bible Brisket. I'm going to put this link because this is the site that we're going to be going over. And hopefully we can get it big enough, blow it up big enough for you guys to see. Let me see if I can get this out of the way. And then maybe we can get a little closer there. And I can probably blow it up. This is the site that we're going to go over. It's called Bible Brisket. You can look at it in your own time, whatever. So I'm going to put a link in the description box. I mean, not in the description, because I'll probably forget to do that. But I'm going to put it in. I think I just copied. I'm going to put it in the chat. Paste. There you go. There is Bible Brisket. And so if you're watching this on the replay, it should be in there. Or if you're watching it right now, either way. All right, BibleBrisket.com. Put that in the chat there. So, Bible Brisket. Doublets in the Hebrew Bible. Now, before we start this, there's 31 of these, and I'm going to give you a brief description. I know this list very well. I think we've gone over it at least twice, but it has been like 2 years. So I'm going to try to jot my memory as good as I can on these 31 doublets and triplets. But as we're talking, we're going to be saying, well, this is the E source, the J source, the P source, or the D source. So what we're talking about is this. J is the Yahweh source. Now that Yahweh, so just think about that. That's a different God than the E, Elohis. So you got Yahweh, Elohim, the Deuteronomy source, and the priestly source. And there is a fifth one. It's redacted or something like that. So let's pull this up. I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to have to shrink that down a little bit. All right, so this is not a test to see if your screen is color work. Wait a second. And I'll give you a couple examples. So here's one example if you want a visual. Oops, let me get that out of the way. Oh, this thing keeps popping up. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, so we're going to see. Well, they don't have the. Let's see. Yeah, they do. They don't have the Deuteronomy source in here. Oh, I bet that's. I need to shrink it more. Anyway, so this thing is covering my screen. I don't know why. This might be just grabbing it too tight. All right. Try to dump me off there for a second. All right. So the redactor source is black. That's in Numbers. You're going to see that in Numbers. You're going to see it in Genesis. The Yahweh source is going to be the J source. And as you can see, it's mostly in Genesis and then a little bit in Exodus, and then it just kind of disappears just a little bit in Numbers. Now, they don't have the Deuteronomy up here, so we're going to look at this other one. So here's another way to look at it, another visual. We're going to see the J source, which is the Yahweh source, the Elohim source, E, the priestly source, the redacted source, and the Deuteronomy source. So if you can see this, Deuteronomy source, you're going to see that in Deuteronomy, obviously. Some in Numbers, a hair in Leviticus, some in Exodus, and some in Genesis. So it's going to be all. You know what? I just saw a video, very interesting. It was Myth Vision with some doctor, I can't remember, some scholar, but they're talking about and you remember the scrolls found under King Hezekiah? They're saying that was the Deuteronomy, their scroll of the Deuteronomy, which explains why all of a sudden things went well. Anyway, so, and the J source, and so as you can see, the blue, I don't know if that's a good visual for people. And here is another kind of, so 4 sources of the Pentateuch, as the Christians, I think, call it. Yahweh source. You got Abraham, the myths, the customs, the folk traditions, the Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Judges era, the creation, the flood, and the call of Moses. And then it kind of overlaps with the Elohim, with the wife as a sister. That's interesting. We're going to talk about all these because I remember them. Hagar leaves, Joseph sold in Egypt. All these kind of overlap the Yahweh and the Elohim source. And you got Jacob, Joseph, Ephraim. We got all this in the Elohim source. And the priestly source, of course, you got the priests, you got the Aaron and the rituals and the law and the high priest and all that stuff, you know, that makes them a bunch of money. Anyway, and then turns the temple into a house of shredders, a den of shredders. Anyway, and then you have the Deuteronomy source, which is Moses, and yeah, north and south, you know. Anyway, in the covenant. Anyway, so that was, I thought that was interesting. I might bookmark that one. And the oral and the written, and here's the years that. I guess you can see it. Here's the years that they were written. So the Yahweh and the Elohim sources were first in 992 BC. Then the Deuteronomy source is kind of around here with all of these are around 7 to 539 BC. And then you got the 400 BC where they all came together. And here's another easier way to look at it. So you got the early and written sources. You got the Yahweh and the Elohim sources came first, 922 BCE. Then comes in 722, which is 200 years later, you got the Deuteronomy source. These two both together, the Yahweh and the Elohim source, and the priestly source. And then when they all came together was 539 BC. That's when they all came together, 539 BC. So I think that was a pretty easy way to look at it too. So let's get over here. We're going to talk about doublets in the Hebrew Bible. Now, there is something called the documentary hypothesis. If anybody, you can just look that up. There's a lady from Yale University that does talks on it. I can't remember who else. But anyway, that kind of explains it. You can also look online. It's called documentary hypothesis. Anyway. Matter of fact, it's this right here, the documentary hypothesis. That's where they put it all to the sources. They divide all the Old Testament into individual sources and kind of mapped them out like that. Anyway, so somebody put a lot of work into this. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit and see if we can maybe get it clear on the picture here. Ooh, that's... Sometimes if I do that, it will go off the page. Did it go off the page? No. All right, it's trying to do the cookie thing on me here. All right. I don't like to do the cookies, you know what I mean? All right. Anyway, sometimes you can click on it randomly, it'll go away, but anyway. So, doublets in the Hebrew Bible. From the Bible with the sources revealed by Richard Elliott Friedman. Okay. Anyway, so here's the sources we just talked about. There's these four sources, the Yahweh. So we're going to see the J source. Just J, just think Yahweh. E, Elohim. D, of course, is Deuteronomy source. And the P is, of course, priestly source. And then there is the redacted. It's not, you'll see it once in a while. Anyway, so let's go through these. There's 31 of them, and we're not going to look each one up. We're going to do that maybe down the road, probably in about, we might be doing it in a few weeks. Maybe go through each, open up each one of these, and we done it probably 2 and 3 years ago. I don't know, but at least a couple years ago it's been. So we did go through each and every one of these. So anyway, I think I remember most of them. So we'll get started here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but so let me see what happens if I get it bigger. Like I said, sometimes it'll just go off the page. Oh, the cookie thing's just getting bigger, taking over. All right, I'll accept. Stupid thing. All right. At least you can see it. I took one for the team there. I don't like to usually do that cookie thing. All right, creation story. So the first one is a creation story. Obviously, in Genesis 1 and 2 is the creation of the earth, God creating the earth. 2 different stories. One is in Genesis 1 by the priestly source, and there's another one in the Genesis 2. Tells a completely different creation story. We talked about this a little tiny bit last night. So you have a Yahweh source of how the world got created, and there's a priestly source. Both of them are different. Things are created on different days. You know, the sun, the moon, the trees, and the water, whatever. If you line them up, they're different. But the biggest different thing is one of them, I can't remember which is which. We'll go over these sometime. One of these creation stories has God created man and woman immediately, told them to go forth and multiply and all that. And the second creation story is he just created Adam, and then Adam got lonely and needed a helper and so on. Then he had a helper pulled out of the rib, and anyway, and that was the 2 creation stories. So you got a Yahweh source and a priestly source. Next, you have genealogy from Adam, and if you look, this happens a lot. I mean, all the way into the New Testament, you get 2 genealogy stories. I mean, they don't even have not even like the 12 tribes of Israel. They don't even line up. They can't get a lot of things to line up, and especially genealogy. Go through Matthew and Luke genealogy. We have multiple times with fine-tooth comb. It is kind of funny, actually hilarious. Not even close. And they fudged it to be 14, 14, 14. Anyway, just a mess. But anyway, that seems to be the thing. If there's more than one genealogy story, it doesn't seem to ever match. And then all the way from Genesis to the end in the New Testament, that seems to be the case. So anyway, there's a genealogy from Adam by the Yahweh source. And then there's in chapter 4, and there's another one in chapter 5 from the Book of Records. And if I remember right, let me think. So one of these genealogies leaves out Cain. I think they leave out Cain, which is Anyway, all right, next, the flood. Here's the flood story. So you've got all these verses in Genesis under the Yahweh source, and then you have a whole nother, all these other ones after that coming in the priestly source. So you've got two completely different flood stories. And then number 4 is the genealogy from Shem. This is such a strange story that Shem, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, the Noah's Ark, the 3 sons. Anyway, well, I could say so much, but anyway, so the genealogy from Shem, man, there's so much I could say about this. But anyway, I'm going to try to stay on track. So genealogy from Shem is in Genesis 10. There are 2 sources, the Yahweh and the priestly source. And then there's a second genealogy of Shem, also from the Book of Records, in chapter 11. So the following chapter, you got a different genealogy of Shem. Next, Abraham's migration. There's actually, Abraham has like a lot of, fly in here. And the door propped open and I got, anyway. Let's see, Abraham migration, Genesis 12. Actually 2 in the same chapter. And this is funny because it just reminded me, I was just thinking about this when I pulled up Abraham's migration, because there's some of these doublets that will simultaneously go side by side, 2 stories. And as you can see, I was just reading this, Abraham's migration. Yeah, Genesis 12 and Genesis 12, 1 through 43. Look at this. And Genesis 12, 4b to 5, and that's a priestly source. I just saw a short from somebody. They're talking about how there was no Exodus at all, which would actually make a whole lot more sense. Why they wandered a little tiny space for 40 years without, anyway. And it would explain a lot of things. If there was no Exodus, it would explain a lot. Things would make so much more sense, because then you would understand that, okay, we can just admit that Moses did come out of Egypt, and Joseph, he came out of Egypt too, and everybody else came out of Egypt. Or maybe they were never there, whatever. And sometimes I think that they stretch these Old Testament characters' lifespans into 500-600 years to kind of cover, because if Moses, or say Noah, say they got a record of Noah, I don't know, this year, and then it's like if there's a record of me doing this live stream here in 2023, and then all of a sudden there's down the road there's somebody's saying that I was alive in 23, 500 years later, and they'd say, wait a minute, the story's falling apart here. You could say, well, she lived over 500 years. So that's how she could be in that time zone and in that in that historical time, and then she can also be in this historical time 500 years in the future. Like if you're looking back and say, wait a minute, but she wasn't alive in the 1700s. Say, well, yeah, she did. She lived hundreds of years. So sometimes I wonder if they just do that, say that they lived hundreds of years to cover for the fact that they seem to be in all these stories. Anyway, because all you could say is, well, he lived to be 500 years old or 600 years old, which, being in nursing and medical for many years and an x-ray technician, licensed x-ray technician also, I cannot see how the bones and the skeleton can hold up for 500 years or 600 or 900. I mean, even the best athletes, anyway. So I'll keep going. So Abraham's migration. So anyway, here's another one. This one's very interesting. I think the triplets are even more interesting, obviously, because there's 3 of them. But this wife-sister thing, wow, that goes deep. I can't wait to go over these. She's my wife, she's my sister. Well, there's 3 stories of that. There's 2 from the Yahweh's source alone, and then there's 1 from the Elohim source. And I don't want to do spoiler alerts too much, but so there's 3 stories. There's 2 stories where it's Abraham and Sarah. And then the next story, it's like Isaac and his wife. But the exact same story. How they come into town, the king has the hots for the wife, and anyway, but the first story, anyway, one of the stories, it seems like they kind of had their way with Sarah, but they gave him a bunch of parting gifts. And then, like, the next time it's written, nah, she didn't go, nope, nothing happened. And anyway, the third time, it's like Abraham, it's his son or his grandson, I can't remember. It's been a couple years since we went over there. But anyway, same thing. So now the son and his wife are coming into town. And the king has the hots for his wife, and he has to pretend it's his sister. But people say, well, in all fairness, Abraham and Sarah were brother and sister. True. The Abraham and Sarah were brother and sister. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just move on. But he pretended it was just the sister, you know what I mean, and not the wife. So he told half a lie, right? Because it really was a sister. Abraham and Sarah were brother and sister. But he was also the wife. So anyway, what is that called? Lying by omission? I can't. In a court. Anyway. Oh, and here's another one. Abraham and Lot separate. So you've got 2 stories of Abraham and Lot separate. Remember, they said, you go your way and I'll go this way and you go that way or whatever. Then Lot went to the city and Abraham went to the country. So anyway, you got that in Genesis 13 and whatever. Anyway, so it's one in Genesis 13 from the Yahweh source. And then as you can see, overlapping Genesis 13, 5 and 7. And there's a whole nother story going on in 13, 6. So it's hard to explain by this, and that's a priestly source. So you got a Yahweh source and a priestly source of when Abraham and Lot separated, went their different ways. Of course, Lot ended up in Sodom and Gomorrah or whatever. Anyway, next, 8. Just all these stories, just think about them. Anyway, because that was all weird too, about him and the daughters, and you know, claiming they had to sleep with the dad. Both the sisters got pregnant from the dad. They got him drunk. First of all, where'd they get the wine? Second of all, they thought they were the last people on earth, but wait a minute, they just went into the city. Anyway, but there was people. Anyway, I'm not really sure they proofread these stories when they wrote them. Because you say, wait a minute, how can she think? Anyway, I'll keep going because I don't want to get too far sidetracked. We'll get into all that when we go through these. Because each one I mean, you can only go through 1 or 2 of these a night because you pull them up and read them, and yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about. Next, number 8 is the Abrahamic covenant. That's in Genesis 15. Now, this is interesting. This is a quadruple. You've got the Yahweh source, Elohim source, the redacted source, and the priestly source. Three of them are in Genesis 15, one's in Genesis 70. The Abrahamic covenant. Next, and then Hagar and Ishmael. Oh man, I could go on all night about that. Anyway, but I won't. So you got Hagar and Ishmael. You know, like I said, these aren't little differences. I mean, one time, one story, and look, you got the Yahweh's. You got this is a triplet. You got the Yahweh source, you got the priestly source, you got the Elohim source. I mean, one of them, he kicks her out, and the Ishmael's a baby, and she throws him under a bush because they're both going to die out in the desert because he decided he doesn't want him anymore. Anyway, or something super petty. Anyway, and another one, the kid's like 14 years old, and they're both walking away. Anyway, very different. So anyway, number 10, prophecy of Isaac's birth. That's in priestly source and the Yahweh source. All right, naming of Beersheba in Genesis 21 is Elohim source, and Genesis 26 is a Yahweh source. Beersheba. I forgot what Beersheba meant. Anyway. All right. Jacob, Esau, and the departure to the east. That's in Genesis 26, 27, 28 by the priestly source. There's overlapping stories in the same exact chapters of 27 and 28 of the Yahweh source. So you'll see two stories going on side by side. Might not notice it if you're just kind of just reading over it. But if you deep dive into these stories, you'll see, wait a minute, they're telling two different stories. Anyway, the same story, but two different ways. It's like a weird TV show. You know how they have those TV shows that start in the end and go back to the front, or whatever they have. This would be a weird TV show, like two stories, the same exact story, but two people telling it differently. Anyway, that would be a kind of cool TV show. So anyway, you got the J and the P. Next, Jacob's 12 sons. Genesis. Yeah. Anyway, I just talked about this. Genesis 29, 30, and 35, you had the Yahweh and the Elohim source. And then Genesis 35, you had the priestly source. Next, Jacob's name is changed to Israel. I just talked about this last night. No explanation. They explain everything, right down to rock and everything else. But when it comes to changing Jacob's name to Israel, I didn't really tell you why. But yeah, it is. Because you got a combination of Isis, the god Isis, you got a combination of the sun god Ra, and you have a combination of El, the god El. Anyway, so that's why Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and nobody explained why. Anyway, it was probably in there, and they probably took it out. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's Elohim and priestly source for that one. 16. 16 is Joseph sold into Egypt. Anyway, 37. So there's a Yahweh and an Elohim source. And as you can see, same chapters, 37 and 39. And you've got 37 overlapping with two different stories going on at the same time. And you can read a whole bunch of times and never notice. I remember one night when I came on, this is years ago, a few years ago, several years ago. I came on one night and I said, you guys, I just read Genesis 1 and 2, and I just realized that they're two different stories. You know how many times I read that before it dawned on me? This was before I knew about doublets. I'm like, dang, there's two different stories. I must have read it. We've read it on here. We've gone over it, I don't know how many times. Genesis 1 and 2 and 3 and all that. But it's like, one time I read it by myself, and it just like dawned on me, wow, these are two different stories. Anyway. Joseph sold into Egypt by his brothers. Good old, where? Lost my place. Here. All right, Joseph sold into Egypt, Genesis 37 and 39. You have the Yahweh source. Same chapter, 37. You have the Elohim source. Two different stories about how Joseph got sold into Egypt. There is two different stories. If you remember, one time they threw him down the well, and then they went to go get something to eat. When they came back, he was gone. Somebody else took him. And another story, they actually sold him and got money. So they were going to kill him, but the oldest one, Reuben, anyway, just all these sons. Anyway, but Reuben is the one that said, hey, no, let's not kill him. We can get money for him. So in one story, they get money for him. The other one, they just threw him somewhere, and then when they came back, somebody else grabbed him and sold him ahead of him. Either way, he got sold, but one time they got money, one time they didn't. All right. Yahweh commissions Moses. Now, this is the triplet, actually. So Yahweh commissions Moses in Exodus 3, 4, in the Yahweh source, Exodus 3, 4, in the Elohim source, and in the priestly source, you have it in Exodus 6, chapter 6, the commission of Moses. And I'm sure everybody knows that there's three different Ten Commandments. Exodus 20 is that's the one most people know, verses like 2 through 17 or whatever it is. That's what most people know, Exodus 20. But there's two other ones that aren't the same. All right, Moses, Pharaoh, and the plagues. This is in Exodus 5, 6, 7, 8. Anyway, all these, look at all that. All this is from the Elohim source. And then you have 7, 8, 9 from the priestly source. Next is the Passover. Exodus 12 is the priestly source. You have Exodus 12 again, the Elohim source. And then the Red Sea. Anyway, we've gone through the contradictions of Old and New Testament. And you can tell when there's more than one person telling the story that the inconsistencies go way up. Anyway, Exodus. All this in Exodus 13, 14, and whatnot is the J source, and all this is the priestly source. Next, manna and the quail in the wilderness. Yes, there are two stories about that. One is in Exodus 16 is the priestly source, and the other one is in Numbers E. Elohim source in Numbers 11. I think the one in Numbers 11, I know it is. It's where they choke. They choke with. Come on, man! Dog's trying to get out from underneath me. The one in Numbers when they choke on the. I think they die when the meat's still in their mouth or something. 22. Water from a rock at Meribah. Yeah, that is weird. That is weird. Because, that's why Moses didn't get in the promised land, because he whacked the rock. After all that, you just hit the stick too hard, you hit the rock, and then you're out. Anyway, water at a rock from Meribah. In Exodus 17 is the Elohim source, and then the other one is the priestly source in Numbers, book of Numbers. 23 is theophany at Sinai Horeb. Well, yeah, they're saying Sinai because they can't get the name straight. Sometimes Sinai, sometimes it's Horeb. Anyway, Exodus 19, all these is the priestly source. Oh, this is a triplet. There's the Elohim source and a Yahweh source. Three different stories about the theophany at Sinai. And then the Ten Commandments. There's a mosquito in here. Darn it. Oh, I got him. Yeah, I got a fly gun in here and some mosquitoes because I had the door open. I don't know which one's worse. I don't want to get bit by a mosquito when I'm sleeping either. The Ten Commandments, like I just said, there are 3 different versions of the Ten Commandments. There's one Exodus 20. It's one most people. Well, actually, there's 4. Well, no. All right. So Exodus 20, it says is a redacted one. And then in Exodus 34 is the Yahweh source. And then Deuteronomy is the D source. And I think that one is the don't boil the mother and the kids. Yeah, here, the kid in the mother's mouth. That sounds so creepy. 25 is don't boil the kid in the mother's milk. That is the covenant code. That is actually one of the third. I think it's a Deuteronomy set of 10 commandments. There's 3 sets of 10 commandments. Oh, and at 4 if you count the Catholics. They got their own. Anyway, kid in the mother's milk, Exodus, covenant code, 34. That was actually with this one is Exodus. Well, no, Exodus 20. This is where they had Moses had the tablets and the 10 commandments on stone tablets. These other ones weren't that. This is Exodus 23. The kid, the mother. Don't boil the kid in the mother's milk. And they're talking about goats. In case anybody's too alarmed. It doesn't sound good. Anyway, so they got a Yahweh and a Deuteronomy source for that. You got forbidden animals, and that's your Leviticus diet, your Levitical diet. That's a priestly source. Actually, that's a good diet. I do stick by that. I do not eat unclean food. Not because they tell me not to. It's because there's nasty things in when a scavenger and a something that eats dead corpses. You don't want to eat that. Anyway, it tells you clean and unclean animals, priestly source and Deuteronomy source. I don't know if I ever compared the 2. They're probably pretty similar because it's either a food animal for food or it's an animal to clean the earth. You know, like in the sea, you got bottom feeders that they eat all the nasty stuff. You know what I mean? And same with the beast, and the same with the mosquito in here or something. Same with the hold on a second. I lost my place here. Must have scrolled up. Yeah, I really lost my place. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I stick by that. That's why I don't eat pork and all that other stuff because it. There's a reason. They're just scavengers. You got them in the sea, you got them on the beasts, the ground, and you got them in the air. You got vultures and kites and all those eagles and things that eat roadkill, and that's not something you want to eat. Anyway. Centralization of sacrifice. Of course, that is going to be, that's weird. They don't say the sources, but obviously it's Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It's weird. They don't tell the sources. Anyway, that's a weird one. Holidays, or should we say holy days? Leviticus 23, the priest tells them there. Numbers 2 is the redacted source, and Deuteronomy is the priestly source. That was a triplet. And then 29 is the spies. You know that one. My dog's named after Caleb. Anyway, the spies. So you got in Numbers, look at all these, is the priestly source in Numbers 13. And then Yahweh has the same in 13. Well, spies is in Numbers 13 and Numbers 14 is the spies went into the land of Canaan. And then you also have the same 2 chapters, 13 and 14 in Numbers, just you have the Yahweh source. And then you have heresy at Peor. You got the Yahweh source in the book of Numbers, 25, in the same chapter Numbers, you got a priestly source, 2 different stories. And the last one, number 31, is the appointment of Joshua. And you know what is funny? Because in one of the stories, Joshua and Caleb make it in the promised land. And the other story, just one of them makes it. And I think it was just Caleb. I can't remember. But one makes it, and the other one, the story, 2 making it. Anyway, most people got most people remember the second one. Hey, Omar. Oh, you got Burger King today? Oh, I used to love the Whoppers and fries. I've not had that in a long time. We had one Burger King up here, and they closed during COVID. They sucked anyway. But yeah, if I go to cities, that's I've not had that in a long time, years, and I miss. Maybe I've had it once since I've been up here, but I've been up here 5 years. But yeah, when I go to the city, I think about Burger King. I used to really like that. Well, God bless you too, Omar. Hope you had a wonderful day. It sounds like Burger King is pretty good. Um, so anyway, so that is the 31 doublets and triplets listed in the Bible brisket. We'll be going over those I don't know, in a couple weeks when we're done with the Canaanite gods. Yeah, Burger King sounds good. You know what I got today? Because I'd never eat out or go anywhere, but I went down to the Twin Cities today. I went down to St. Paul, Minnesota, which is about 100 miles one way. And it was hot down there, man. It was like 92. I didn't know it was gonna be that hot. Anyway, I had short time, but I had to go to a few stores down there. And anyway, on the way back, I was in Maplewood. Actually, that's the town I grew up in. It's a pretty big city, actually. But I was going to get up on the freeway, and I saw Golden Corral. I'm like, yeah. So I went to the Golden Corral. You know how I do it? I do it cheap. I get a to-go container, and you go and I go just pick out meat. It was a shredded beef sandwich. I got a piece of that, and usually I always just get the fish. They got really good fish. So I get fish, a couple hush puppies, and I got some other chicken. That was really good. But yeah, I got that to go. Because I cannot eat $20 worth of food when I sit down. That's ridiculous. I can get the to go for $6 and eat on that twice. So yeah, I can eat about $3 worth of food. So yeah. So I get the Golden Corral to go. They weigh it up and you just pay when you leave. So anyway. Well, good. Sounds like you had a good day, Omar. Hope your job's doing well. Listen, just don't want to cooperate here. Anyway, so that is that. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up and get off of here and say good night. Tomorrow is Friday. It's just an open chat tomorrow. And we'll be going over these doublets, I don't know, in a few weeks, probably after we get done with I don't know how long it'll take us to go through the Canaanite gods. We're just going to go over the ones that pertain to Israel. Well, the obvious connections, anyway. El, Yahweh, and so on. Baal, which is the son of Dagon, the fish god. Anyway. All right, well, thanks for coming in, guys. Omar, it was nice to see you tonight. I hope everyone has an awesome day wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. Anyway, thanks for coming in. All right, well, love you guys, and hope you all have a restful night, and hope to see you tomorrow. Anyway, good night, everybody.